You've been told that discipline is about willpower. Wake up 5 a.m., cold shower, habit tracker, or even grind harder than the next person. But here's the question that nobody in the productivity space is asking. Why do entire communities, people who have survived colonization, famine, displacement, systemic poverty, show resilience level that outlast every Western high-performance system ever sold to you? Well, it's not because they are tougher people, but it's because they were never taught discipline as an individual trait, but they were taught discipline has inherited identity. And by the end of this video, you will understand exactly why that distinction might be the missing piece in everything you've tried so far. Let's do this. Okay, so let's name the actual conflict, because most people talk about this, either romanticize one side and strawman the other. I'm not going to do that, okay? So, the Western discipline, as it's sold to you as of now, is built on 3 pillars. The first one is the individual as the unit of change, which means you versus your goals. The second one is willpower as a deplectable resource you have to manage. The third one is systems and optimization, which is habit stacks, productivity frameworks, and biohacking. On the other hand, African cultural frameworks of resilience. And I want to be very precise here because Africa is 54 countries and thousands of cultures. So I'm speaking to a shared philosophical thread that runs through many of them, most famously articulated in the Southern African concept of Ubuntu, which basically means I am because we are. In that framework, discipline is not a personality trait you are born with or grind into existence alone. It is a relational trait held in place by community expectations, ancestral narrative, and collective accountability. Here's the parts that's going to challenge you. Western psychology has spent the last 15 years scientifically rediscovering what these cultural frameworks assumed all along. Well, let's get into the actual neuroscience. To understand why cultural frameworks changes resilience outcome, you need to understand 3 systems in your brain and your body. The first one is the HPA axis and allostatic loads. Your hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis governs your stress response, cortisol release, recovery time, baseline reactivity. Chronic unbuffered stress raises what researchers call allostatic loads, which is cumulative wear on your cardiovascular and nervous system from stress your body never fully recovers from. And here's the critical detail almost every productivity guru skips. The same stressor produces different allostatic loads depending on whether it is experienced in isolation or within a supported social context. The second one is social buffering. This one is one of the most replicated findings in stress neuroscience. Perceived social support, not even active help, just the belief that support exists, measurably lowers cortisol reactivity and reduces amygdala activation during stress. Oxytocin release during social bonding directly dampens the threat response. In that, we can say perceived community support equals lowers cortisol reactivity. I'll give you an example. A person facing hardship within a tight communal structure is neurologically facing a smaller threat than someone facing the identical hardship alone, even if nothing material about that hardship changes. The third one is narrative, identity, and prefrontal cortex. There's a body of research on what's called redemptive narrative identity. When people frame their hardship as part of a meaningful, ongoing story, it can be something like, I come from people who endured and adapted, rather than a random, isolated burden. They show better regulated prefrontal amygdala connectivity. Meaning making is not a soft, motivational poster concept. It is a measurable regulator of your stress circuitry. So here is the uncomfortable truth for the productivity industry. Willpower-based discipline is trying to solve a neurological problem with a behavioral tool. It's giving you a habit tracker when what your nervous system actually needs is buffering and meaning. That's exactly why the Western system has such a high failure rate. Let's break that down next. I'm not anti-productivity system. I use plenty of them myself. But let's be honest about the failure pattern, because you've probably lived it. So, failure point 1, the ego depletion trap. Western discipline frameworks largely assume that willpower is a battery that drains across the day. Whether or not you buy that model fully, the practical effort of believing it is real. People ration their effort, fear depletion, and treat discipline as a finite resource that they constantly want by their way from running out of it. Failure point 2, isolation by design. Most popular systems, especially habit tracker and solo accountability apps, which basically puts you in a position of just you and your goal frameworks, remove the social buffering layer we just covered. You are basically optimizing in isolation, which means every setback hits your nervous system at full allostatic loads with no community to absorb the shock. Failure point 3, identity is an afterthought. Western systems usually start with behavior. They'll tell you like, do this habit and hope identity will follow. Or eventually you'll become a disciplined person. But the neuroscience we just covered suggests that it works better in reverse. Identity and narrative regulate the stress response that makes the behavior sustainable in the first place. This is exactly why so many high achievers burn out. They build a discipline system with no community buffer, no inherited narrative, just raw, isolated willpower running on a battery that was never designed to last. So, what does the alternative actually look like in practice? Well, this is the part that I get asked about the most. So this is the framework drawn from Ubuntu philosophy and resilience pattern across many African cultural traditions, broken into 4 different components that you can actually map onto the neuroscience we just covered. The first one is communal accountability over solo willpower. In many traditional structures, discipline isn't privately monitored. It's witnessed. Extended families, elders, and community hold you to standard, which means accountability is externalized instead of resting entirely on your depletable willpower. Neurologically, this is social buffering built into the social architecture instead of bolted on as an application features. The second one is inherited narrative over manufactured motivation. Instead of saying find your why as a one-time journaling exercise, the why is transmitted through oral storytelling, proverbs, and elders explicitly naming what your lineage has already survived. Something like you come from people who endure this and that is a resilience instruction, not just a sentimental fact. This is redemptive narrative identity, delivered as cultural inheritance rather than self-help homework. The third one is rite of passage over habit stacking. Many of these cultures mark resilience building through structure thresholds, initiation ceremonies, defined stages of growth, rather than in endless, undifferentiated grind. Discipline has a beginning, a structure, and a recognized completion, which gives the nervous system something Western 21 days habit frameworks rarely offer, a sense of arrival. The fourth one is hardship has shared meaning, not personal failure. Suffering is contextualized as part of a collective ongoing story, not evidence that you individually are falling short of. This single frame changes the appraisal of stress, which is exactly the mechanism behind reduced amygdala reactivity we just covered earlier. None of this means abandon Western systems. Your habit tracker isn't the enemy. It means the Western model is missing the infrastructure that makes discipline neurologically sustainable. So, let's build the merge version, the part that you can actually use today. Alright, step 1. Build a witnessed goal, not a private one. Tell at least one person your goal and give them explicit permission to check on you. Don't just track it, let it be witnessed. Okay? This activates the social buffering mechanism instead of relying purely on solo willpower. Step 2. Write your inherited narrative in one paragraph. Finish this sentence. I come from people who survived, fill in the blanks, which means I already carry the ability to fill in the blanks. This isn't a motivational exercise. You are constructing a redemptive narrative identity that your prefrontal cortex can use to regulate stress under pressure. Step 3. Turn your goal into a threshold instead of an open-ended habit. Define a clear rite of passage with a start, a defined challenge, and a recognized completion point. It can be something like a before and after moment. Give your nervous system an arrival, not just an endless grind. Step 4. Reframe setbacks as shared story, not a personal failure. When you sleep, use language like, this is part of the process my people have already navigated, instead of saying something like, I failed again. Okay? This is a direct cognitive reappraisal technique, and reappraisal is one of the most well-supported methods for reducing amygdala reactivity in the research. And finally, step 5. Keep the Western tool, but just add the missing layer. Keep your habit tracker. Keep your SMART goals, keep your morning routine, but just don't run them in isolation. Anchor every system to a witness, a narrative, and a community. And from there, you've just built something far more durable than willpower alone. So, now, the Western discipline asks, how strong is your willpower? On the other hand, the African cultural framework asks, whose story are you continuing? And who's holding you accountable to it? Okay? The real answer isn't picking a side, okay? The real answer is building the version of discipline that your nervous system was actually designed to sustain. If this reframed something for you, I'm honored to share this information with you. And my book, Mental Toughness, Unbreakable Mind, is available on Amazon. And if you are in part of South Africa, is available on Take A Lot. You can order it right away. It's an easy read. So, yeah, you can get it ordered now. And please let me know in the comment section which of these 5 steps are you starting from today, right away. And I'll see you in the next video.